I'll mute the sound. I just need to fix a couple of things with Restream. I had problems with OBS earlier. I had basically uninstall it and install it again. So like, has it stopped streaming? It looks like it's locked up. It's not the most fantastic thing in the world. Alright, let's go with chat messages of about that size. Cool. I'm happy with that. I think the scene is okay. Done. So I'm just gonna get on with it, really. Let's move some terminal stuff around. So I have terminal here. See if there's a way to add a second profile to this so it can be a little bit bigger. Profiles. Okay, other action, duplicate profile. We'll call this one streaming. And text. Change font. Let's get this up to 30. We on that profile now? Profile. Oh god, that's huge. It's just going to be that window. Okay, that makes good sense. Okay, not sure if I like that. At least people will be able to see it well. Cool, so we'll open PHP Storm. Did it work? There we go. We'll whack this into presentation mode as well. Which I'm kind of actually getting to like the presentation mode, but hey. So I fixed the unit tests. There's a whole bunch of environment variables that are all completely out of whack. So that should now be fixed. Let's get this out of the way. So I've got something that's going to project the workflow, and I might as well carry on building this out. So let's go through workflow, projections. Okay, and we'll add in the workflow projector, which they always implement a subscriber, which is just a way to subscribe to events. We will need my SQL client, and then we'll have a method which I can't remember what it would be, apply, and it's something like workflow drafted. There we go. We'll make sure it's named something sensible, and we'll subscribe to it. So this is the smooth event sourcing library that I built. So this is how you subscribe your events. So I'm basically just saying when that method, this class listens to this event here, and when that happens, fire off this function. You can add more, you can set priorities as well, which is useful. And then we'll do something along the lines of this. Client, query, table, workflows. I think I called it workflows. Yep. There's no such concept of opening side by side. I'll just copy it for now. Just put it here for now. Insert workflow ID. Get workflow ID. Project ID. If you were listening yesterday, that's what I forgot, and I coded it in this morning. There's a name, and then, well, we'll have the drafted at time as get drafted at. Done. It needs to be void. We don't need this crap here anymore. Oh, no one on the stream at the moment. Not sure whether streaming early with the up and coming thing was not the best idea. Okay, so that should now successfully run. I think so. We now need to, let's just subscribe this to the system. Okay, and I already registered this, I think, so CQ. CQR, yes. Yeah, workflows. We could be really lazy and add it to the rebuilds at the moment because it's not too much in the system. Now I just need to make sure Docker's actually running for this. Oh, again I got this problem. Oh no, it worked. Working on. I've been having this problem where Docker has just not been running. Okay, so that's run. So we can run PHP artisan smooth rebuild. Must be callable array given. Must have got my listeners completely wrong then. Okay. Oh, okay, I got the method name wrong. Okay, so it's now rebuilt that. So if I was to open SQL Pro, which I just need to carefully do on another screen, so let's have a look. So we've got an event store table locally. Where's screen estate there? This might be a bit small. We've got an event store there, and if we go to the local Docker, we should now have workflows here, which is going to be empty. Okay. I'll code a bit more of the domain before I start adding it into the actual interface. So that's all well and good. We've now drafted something. We need to, what's the most sensible thing to do? I need to register the initial trigger. So we'll go into the domain test workflow. So we're gonna put register. This is gonna, whatever I do on this is just gonna end up down a rabbit hole. So register workflow trigger. It's like the initialization event. Nope, didn't think it was how you spelled it. Is that the right initialization? Let's hope so. I will Google. The action of emitting someone into a secret.
Initiation.
The initiation. Yeah, that's fine. Yep, that's the right word. Okay, and this is a domain test again, which comes with the methods of just needing to define there is a workflow aggregate, and the repository we're using is the workflow repository. Okay, so this one will be slightly different to the previous one, so we're going to just register Stripe event trigger. And we're going to say this given, but this time we're going to apply that event. So that was new workflow drafted, eventually I will move this out into its own sort of factory method. So new workflow ID. Equals UID. New product ID, which can just be 1 for now. A name is just example workflow, why not? And then new date time. The date isn't critical for any domain process at the moment. And then we can say when new, and we'll put in our command. Command should just be register that reminds me to change this to actually have the word test in. So we're going to have the workflow ID. We're going to have a trigger type, and in this case it's just going to be stripe, just to give me a bit more flexibility in the future. And then what would it be that would define what a stripe trigger? It's just going to be a stripe event, so I guess in that sense it's going to be event type, and then we'll go with something like customer.created. I think that's an example of one. Events stripe customer created. Yep, that's fine. And then we can just check it exists in this folder. Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that for now. Then handler is just new register workflow trigger handler, and then this repository, and then we'll just test the outcome of this. Results. Check event count. We'd expect one event to happen after this. We can go into more detail in a bit, so we'll just format this a bit more neatly. BY. Nope. It's void and as a test. So now we can run this. We can debug this. We just get a test error, class not found. So I can sort of show in this case an actual example of test-driven development with event sourcing. Not doing as well today for Twitch stats, for streaming stats. So we'll register the workflow trigger. Oh, good evening, Alex. Your faithful Alex is back. What's the plans for tonight? To continue with the workflow stuff that was yesterday evening before I had to dash off. I just want to get more of the workflow part in. So the basic things like triggering a workflow. So in this case, we're triggering it from a Stripe event. And then I want to look at actions, which at the moment will just be sending emails, and that's probably more than enough for this evening. But then moving on to gates or if statements to put into the workflow, and basically get it to the point where a user could build up the entire workflow. And then after that, I want to be able to build something that exports the workflow and gets it to execute. So yeah, that's what we're working on. So a bit more event sourcing stuff really this evening. Just need to crack on with it really. So we can create our new command here, which is the register the workflow trigger, extends a base command. So we have the workflow ID, we have the, what was it? I can't even remember from a second ago. The trigger type and the event type. Does that make sense? So we have the trigger, which could be Stripe, or it could be a webhook, or anything like that. And then okay, let's change this to trigger source, and then trigger type. Yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. So we've got the trigger type, and then we've got the, oh no, messed up already. Trigger source. Yeah, okay, I'll do. Just build all this out. Okay, so if we run the test again, we're just going to get the handler is not found. So we can register the handler as well. In this case, we need the workflow repository. And we'll have our function, which is handle workflow, oh no, register workflow trigger, command. Oh, I was nervous coding with an audience. So we need to get the workflow from the repository. Workflow ID, command, get workflow ID, workflow, register trigger. And then I'll wrap this in some sort of value object. So workflow trigger, get source, command get type, and then afterwards you have to save the workflow back into the repository to commit the events. So okay, and then this can be void. All commands don't return objects anyway, so don't return anything. So okay. Then if we were to run it again, we're going to get, oh, it's not found the handler, so if I import that. Then if you were to run it, we're going to probably get something like that. Register command doesn't exist, but it makes more sense just to build this value object first. So we'll create it in here. Workflow trigger. So we'll put a construct, and it will have the source and the type. We'll have here a guard. No, I didn't mean to do that. I just meant to put comment in a guard against the source and the trigger being not verified. Obviously, you do validation, but you also have to do validation at the domain level. So just make sure those dot blocks work okay. And then we can add that. And then we probably just want this to serialize as well, just make our lives a bit easier. So we'll add those methods and just quickly write those out. Serializing is because we have to store the event in the event store as JSON, so we have to basically compile down the object into a string, and then be able to export it again back into the full event objects, or in this case the value object. Type return static. Okay, so that's going to serialize and deserialize this object. So we can now put that method there. So we can now add the register trigger command, and that's going to just be workflow trigger. It's going to return void as well. And we're just going to apply this straight away. Workflow, more comfortable. Trigger registered. So this workflow ID. You have to give it the ID. Each event needs to know the ID to be able to, when you apply it. So it's in essence know which aggregate it's applying to. So when you write a MySQL query, you can do where workflow ID equals event workflow ID. And then we'll put the actual trigger and then a date time. Done. So we'll make this event. Let's see if it can do it. Events. But we're going to get the namespace wrong, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, and it didn't import anything either. Good. Okay, so we can import these. Initialize the fields. We can add the getters. And then we can look at, we've got to implement event and serialize. Oh, tired this evening. And again, just like the value object, this needs to be able to serialize down. Are you working on anything tonight, Alex? Nope, no answer. Just on my own, I think. I'll put some headphones on, listen to some music. I hope it doesn't come out the stream. There you go, I can still hear myself think. Playing bass guitar. I didn't realise you played the guitar. I think with Mike playing in a band as well, he should form the whole Hot Snapper band. I'll obviously do vocals. I'm a very good singer. Remote band, yeah. Deal with the lag. Tell you what, absolute ball ache grind this all out. It's one attribute you can't give event sourcing: speed. So slow to write out. Should probably invest some time into building this to happen automatically. Oh, hi Lee. Yeah, she's much better this evening. Still not great, but she hasn't called out, so. I've added a be right back scene, so hopefully, or not hopefully, but hopefully I don't have to use it. I don't know if the mic mutes when I go to the be right back scene. Okay, so I think this event's probably there. We can run our test again, and it's going to tell us it can't find the event, which is fine. So if we import it, green lights. Yeah, it's because the stream is, oh god, it looks awful. Why is it so screwed up? The streamer's got a bit of lag on, so I don't know why, but so I do have your notifications open on a separate screen, so I do actually see them in probably real time-ish. I think that's an area of the stream I need to work on. Get the messages to display a bit nicer. Okay, where was I? So we've got green lights on the test. Yeah, I think the stream's quite lagging because it goes from my computer to restream.io, and then it goes out to Twitch and Twitter and YouTube. So I don't know, by the time that's all happened, it seems to be quite slow. Now here you could do a whole bunch of tests to check what the event type was, whether these values are the ones that are in the event, but I can't be bothered. What I am going to do is create an array to store the trigger sources and the trigger types for now. One, to display it on the front end, and two, just to do some validation. So actually, I'm probably just going to commit this first. So we should probably put something in here which we know will be false. So we'll expect the event count to be 0. Sorry, I'm reading stuff on my other screen as well. somebody at work wanted to see the stream. Okay, so Lee, your question is, I can't seem to get into tests, i.e. writing them, features and unit tests. I think it's a combination of never done it before and not sure how and where to start. Any suggestions? I guess that's a good question, really. I guess if you can't see the value in them, there's not going to be any incentive for you to actually go and learn how to do it. So I guess maybe try and look into researching sort of what the value is. I don't know if you work with other developers at all, but as soon as you start adding other developers into the mix, or you've got client stuff, or you've got like areas of system that are like really critical and you don't want to break. Okay, you do see the value. Okay, just continue. If you've got areas of the system that would break, and like legacy code is like a really great place to start putting tests in, for example. So you do see the value. Okay, I presume you're on Laravel, just based on what you've said. So I would just start out with not trying to do unit tests. Try and do full end-to-end testing. Maybe even just get Dusk set up. Just get it. Check the login works. Check that when you fill in a form, the values end up in the database. Go like full end-to-end testing, and then try and drill down to a unit test afterwards. So if you create a service or something like that, then at that point you could try and unit test it. Obviously, event sourcing leads itself quite nicely to unit testing. End-to-end testing, says Alex. Yeah, but it's got to be the easiest place to get started. Then you'll reach hurdles with end-to-end testing. Like, let's say on Automaily, I've got to wait for events from email providers. I've got to send emails out, and you could fake them, but obviously that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is eventually you get to a point where your system's talking to third-party services and you don't want it to do that. So you start sort of narrowing your tests and getting them tighter. Right. Where was I? Okay, so this test here, I want it to fail. So register Stripe event. Register unknown event. Okay, I want this test to fail. When I run it, it's gonna. Is it gonna succeed? Oh no, it's gonna. The test is gonna fail because it's still generating an event when it shouldn't. And in fact, we can test for an exception, which we don't know at the moment. We could probably make that already. So workflow trigger and unknown. Let's go for that. Always try and give something a rough name and then come back and to give it a bit more when I realise. So we'll just create a folder for exceptions for the workflow stuff. So I swear I created that. I did, but I made it final. So we can import it. Yeah, I guess you're right, Alex. Probably end-to-end testing should never really talk to third-party systems. Yeah, it's never really ideal to talk to third-party systems, is it? There are some scenarios where, let's say you've got one set of tests that you do want to just run, maybe not through automation, but you would want to check, for example, Stripe coupons do work as expected, or something like that. But yeah, you wouldn't want to put them through Circle CI or something like that. Okay, so we've got this exception now, so we can now code it into our test. So we're expecting that exception to happen. It reminded me, Alex, when I couldn't work out why these tests weren't working once, and I logged into my Stripe account to find the test account had like 2,500 customers registered. It's always a good test when you're building something locally, and if you've lost your internet access and your unit tests are failing, you've fucked it up. Okay, so we're still expecting that event to be 0. So when we load this, the workflow trigger up, we should be doing a check here to make sure it's a valid type. So we'll have something like guard and then triggers. And we'll pass in the source and the type. I can't spell again. So we'll add the method in. So this can be void. These are strings. I should just import these for me. And then if we were to just do a throw here, if we were to do a trigger, we get the test to pass, but obviously the other test would fail. Yeah, it was quite funny. Okay, so we probably need to just create a config file for all this stuff. So we'll make a folder called workflows, and let's put the triggers in here. So this will be our list of triggers. So not sure what the best way to do this. So let's do type. That'll do for now. Okay, so we need to just check that that exists, so we can just load out all triggers equals, let's do a collection here. In answer to your question, Alex, no. So an event will happen from somewhere. It will then check through to see whether that customer has that trigger set up on a workflow. It will then initiate a new workflow. Now the second step of their workflow may be to have a delay. So they would have that as a second step. Now what's the easiest way to filter this? I can't really remember the outcome. Let me have a quick look what the easiest method for doing this is. My Laravel collection game is not great. I'm thinking first, but then I'm not sure I want to do. Just want to do a where. Where in, where straight, where instant of, where. Oh, I could just do filter. I'll do it for now. Doesn't really make sense, but let's see if it'll work. Yes, that still works, and then we'll just test to see whether the other test still works. So we'll just run all the unit tests in here. Okay, so everything passes. Now let's just check for sanity. If I was just to put random and run it again, it should fail. Yeah, it's just going to say can't find that. That's great. Oh, okay, yeah, correct. So in a workflow, you'd be able to put in a delay. So a delay of seconds, minutes, hours, whatever. You could also put in, which I think is a pretty key feature, like force it to only happen or to continue between like Monday to Friday, 9 till 5. That's what Automaily currently does. So, for example, payment failure, we won't send to a customer outside of their business hours. And we guess their business hours based on their time zone. So, simple answer is yes. Okay, so I'm glad we got the triggers in. So we can go through and add more, and we can also we can add anything here that we need to display on the front end as well. I'm trying to think there's any point giving it a unique ID, but probably not. Well, I'll come back to that. Okay, so we've now created a the trigger. So an event will come in, we'll check to see whether we have any workflows that are published and registered to work with that. So I could show a quick cool thing about event sourcing, which is just rebuilding really quickly to support new structures. So workflows have state. I haven't coded it in yet. So table string status. And then when we project this, we can say that the status is draft. And now when we reproject that, it's going to add that column. And then when we look in SQL Pro, we'll see that we've got the status now. I should have reordered it. And that would reapply all the events and work quite smoothly. So we should just reorder that. Just to make myself happier. And then it's probably beneficial to have a joint index on that. Because we're going to have to query that a lot. Okay, so I'll just okay, so I guess the next thing is to make actions, which will include delays. It's probably more complicated, isn't it? It's more complicated because it involves mapping out the order. So the trigger is basically the initialization of the workflow. Okay, so we can basically copy the start of this one. Actually, I'm going to copy this out into helpers. So let's make a folder just called Event Factory. And we'll call it work workflow event factory and a static method. Yeah, I could probably make this a lot cleverer, but this has worked quite well for us for the last 4 or 5 years. So just inject the workflow. We normally just come in, make things default if we need to. For example, if I needed to test the product ID to be different. Yeah, I think it's a really good place to get started with Dusk. I built some pretty, maybe not cool, but for example, our health insurance they don't send emails about like your account status throughout the year, and you earn points for doing, for being healthy and getting your maximum steps in and stuff. So I built a Dusk app that logs in, goes to login form, fills in my details, then it goes to the accounts page, and using CSS selectors extracts the points. It also takes a screenshot of the page and then sends an email with the points, the number of days remaining in the year, and a screenshot of that page. So I never have to log into the insurance website because it's painfully slow to log in. And I've seen other examples where people have got like utility companies where you have to log in each month and pay by card, and they've just completely automated it using Dusk. Okay, so that's the event factory given workflow drafted. Let's just, yeah, what's that? So we'll now go back into our tests and we'll just replace that with the workplace event factory. Just because I'm going to need it somewhere else. So we'll just copy this because I'm lazy. Let's copy register workflow action. Copy all this in. I guess it doesn't matter if they haven't set the trigger. I don't know. Maybe they should set the trigger because it might limit the actions they can use. Yeah, let's make sure they've got the trigger set up as well. So we'll do that as well. So it takes a workflow. Right. For someone who's dyslexic, I shouldn't have chosen event sourcing, shouldn't I? Source and a type, and then it's just a new date time. Okay, am I happy with that? Yeah. So the source is Stripe and the type is customer.created. So we can register a I've written this in the wrong fucking place, haven't I? Oh, Jesus. I was meant to write it in this one. Let's just check all our tests run. Okay, so it wants the subject done, so. Okay, so we're going to register a workflow action. I probably need my notepad and pen because I did jot down some ideas about this earlier. So we got the workflow ID. Basically, we need to know the event that predecesses this one. So it's like from workflow step, in this case it'd be 0. Always forget to play these bloody tests. Then it needs to have an action. Let me just go and get a my pen and paper. 1 minute. Right then, I wrote down how this would work and I've totally forgotten. It was over 12 hours ago. So we'll just do an action type and then so it's like email. Then it's going to have some sort of like metadata or something to know what actual action to trigger. So for example, in the case of the email, we need to know which email to send. So I'm trying to think if that's just going to be an integer or like an identity, or is that going to be more complicated? So we're going to have like emails, we're going to have like trigger webhooks, we're going to have like retry failed card payments. I'm just going to add a metadata thing. You'll notice these variables don't get used, they just make it a bit easier to understand when you come back and read this later. This might just be an integer, so I'll just do that. Okay. It does leave my mic on. Okay, that's really annoying. I don't understand why the scenes you can't. Have to investigate why that is. Okay, so we can now create this command at least for now until I gain more insight and realise it's completely wrong. It is OBS, yeah. I had all sorts of issues with it before the stream. So really, it's all part of like a mixer. And I didn't actually have to add in the audio to the scene. I'll have a look at it after the stream. Is it still me? Who are you? So what was the test we were running again? So what did we decide? It is, oh, let's call it previous step. Oh, it's Harriet. Hello, Harriet. Oh, it's your online alias. Or I know how to find you now. You shouldn't have revealed that information. Okay, whatever, we'll just roll with it. So it's taking me a lot of time to think about, isn't it? We'll make it null and then we'll give it an ID. And we'll make it unique, so you can any workflow will know what step we're on. So it's going to be string or null. So I cannot spell previous. Jesus. I need people shouting out what I'm meant to be writing here. Action type metadata. Okay, should be able to remember that. Metadata is such a cop out of actually thinking what it's meant to be doing. Okay, I'll do. PHP Storm with fucking null types is just the worst. There we go. That's why it was fucked up. Alright, so if we run this again. Okay, can't find the handler, that makes sense, so we'll go to here. Make the command handler. That's why. So we'll register the action, command, get previous step, command, get step ID, and then we'll do new work flow action. So we'll get the action type and get the metadata. So I'll just make this file object now. Oh, tired now. It's going to be so similar to the trigger. Only got 6 people on Twitch, apparently. What am I doing? Need to do more promotion. So we can add that as well. Okay. So we know this one as well, so we can import that and we can register or we can make the action. We'll just go back and to make this void. So ultimately we're just going to save this event, but there's quite a lot of domain rules around this one. So workflow ID, previous step, step ID, action, new date time. That's fine. We'll make sure that works, but we need to check whether the previous step ID exists, whether it was an end state or not, and then whether the step ID makes sense. Yeah. So we'll create this class. Should really make them value objects, but I'll just keep them as strings for now. So we got the workflow ID, we got string. Let's make it ID. One minute. Cool, I got a time to be interviewed for 3 devs and a maybe. That'd be cool. not even sure what to talk about. I think we're meant to be talking about bootstrapping startups or self-funding startups. I think that's a better term for it. So I better reply to Ed at some point. Okay, so let's make sure event and serialize. I keep doing that. It's never going to learn which one I want if I keep getting it wrong, is it? Add all the getters. This is always an array. I should just type that into the interface. So what have we got? We've got previous step. Previous step. It's got its own step ID. And then we've got the action, which is luckily already serializable. And then registered. You'll learn those words I can just never ever fucking spell correctly first time. Oh, I haven't got a ball, I'm just going to copy and paste it. See what error is here. So just can't find the handler. Got test results except one. Oh, yeah, I've got an interview with 3 devs and a maybe coming up. So I just need to arrange arrange the date. I think about the end of this month. I was just saying I wasn't really sure what we were going to be talking about. I asked about sponsoring it on there, and then Ed came back saying that I sort of quite like to know about Snapshooter and then possibly about startups and stuff. So just going to be talking, I think, mostly about self-funded bootstrapping, self-funded startups. But if you've got anything you'd love to hear on an interview, I'd love to have more ideas. Good luck with your desk testing. Oh, string or null. Bollocks, I forgot. So just gotta go through and just change these. Do you think you'll be switching your live streaming between projects? It'd probably just be focused on Automaily at the moment. Snapshooter doesn't really have much active development. Yeah. So I'm not really sure what to what to even. I don't really do much active development on Snapshooter, so there's not really much to show anyway. Does that pass? What the hell's going on here? There we go, test passing. Okay, so that's now passing. But we're gonna have to create so many more tests around this. Okay, so the first thing we could do is test what happens when the previous action doesn't exist. So just plonk in a UUID. I expect nothing, no event, and an exception to happen. So I thought I got it right then. So, wait a minute. Oh, it's not registered this way. I was going to say that should have definitely failed. Yep. Okay, that's good. So we're expecting no event to happen. So if we go to the handler, we need to do a check to say if the previous step doesn't equal null, it should then exist. So we could, in true event sourcing, in true DDD, we could just throw the exception now and worry about that later. So let's try and get this right. Previous step. So we'll pass in the workflow ID and the previous step that we're trying to get. So it's an invalid argument, and we'll just pass these into the parent. IAUS. Yeah, that looks good. So you can workflow, import it, and then we'll go back to our test and we'll check that. So that passes, but that would always pass. So we now need one where the previous step does exist, and for that error not to happen. So we'd expect one event to happen. We're going to register a step. Let's just write it now. New workflow ID, get the workflow. This is going to have to contain basically everything. The action, I'm just going to put email. I'll come back in and change that if I need it to be dynamic. Okay, that should work. Don't know if I'm going to call it a day after getting this to work. So we'll say it's null, and then we'll give it a. We'll just use the previous. We'll just do it like that. That'll be fine. Can't be null. Supporting null was probably the worst idea. So this is throwing an exception when it shouldn't. So we'll go through and make the handler test this. Okay, so we basically need an AND clause here, and just to say, does step exist? So we could just do this. Valid. Okay, so it's like, how do you know whether this step exists in this? So how we do it is we're going to do an apply method here. So we're going to say protected function apply workflow action registered. That's why we did it first. That's an event void. And we're just gonna, for now, Just make an array of the steps. And we'll just lazily add the whole event. So every time that event happens on this aggregate, it's going to add it to this array. So we can now test to see whether it exists. It's actually not necessary. And why did it fail? See some debugging here. So the previous step is that. Oh shit. Okay. So we can probably now run all the tests just to make sure. Just run. Okay, so everything passed. What's missing now? To test the previous step now exists. Alright, Alex, catch you later. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, I'm probably going to stop at 9, I think. Okay, so what I want to test now is whether the action is supported, and then what the metadata required for that action is. That might be a good way of doing it. So you could say for the email, we require the email ID. So let's make that in the config. Then that'll probably be a good place to wrap it up. So actions. Hello, who is IICE89? I kind of recognize it. Where have I seen that tag before? Who is that? It's going to be obvious to me, isn't it? Oh, it's Daniel, fucking hell. Hello, Daniel. You had a good launch though, didn't you? Look at that. Let's have a quick look at how you meant to pronounce it. Is it frame? Let's have a look. yeah. Laravel UK. Second product of the second place product of the day. I want to know what your MMR is now. MRR, yeah. frame. Okay. Yeah, I want to know how much revenue you're making now. So let's have type, and then the type is going to be can afford the domain. Yeah, no shit. That's good going. Let's have a look. Let me open Charm. So this is Snapshooter. So if we have a look at the monthly recurring revenue from all time, right, sorry. So you can see I launched January 2017 and it was like £2, £15, £28. So it took like 3 months to get to 30 quid a month. So I feel like you're on the right track there if you got something that's instantly got into that numbers. So the metadata we require is email. It requires an email ID. This might be the end of the stream. I think my daughter's not very happy at the moment. Right, I think it's probably a good point to wrap up anyway. Sorry, Daniel, if you've only just joined. I'm going to call it an end to streaming. So I might stream tomorrow night. I don't know. But thanks for coming along.